Mr. Secretary, I want to thank you so much for being here today, and I really thank you for your leadership on promoting competition and supply chain security in the livestock and meatpacking industry. As you mentioned in your testimony, between cyber attacks and pandemic disruptions and other stresses on the U.S. food supply chains, we have seen the issue of consolidation in our meatpacking industry as not just an economic threat to producers, but it's also a national security threat to the United States. As a former CIA officer, I am deeply concerned about the ability of foreign actors to disrupt our agricultural sector, particularly as we see this type of consolidation. That's why I was really proud to co-lead the Butcher Block Act alongside my colleague and fellow committee member, Dusty Johnson. The Butcher Block Act would establish a loan program at USDA for new and expanding meat processors, and I was very excited that just this week, USDA announced a similar loan guarantee initiative that will help expand meat and poultry processing capacity using funds from the American Rescue Plan. So I thank you for that initiative. But for my question today, Mr. Secretary, I want to talk about the climate change. And I want to thank you for your work in bringing growers and producers to the table to combat the climate crisis. And certainly I once had a farmer say, you know, we're the original conservationists. And certainly as the original conservationists, farmers in rural communities really have to be an integral part of any solution to the climate crisis. And it was in that vein and with that thought that I was proud to introduce the Growing Climate Solutions Act, HR 2820, alongside Representative Don Bacon of Nebraska, also committee member. And ultimately, we were pleased to see that legislation pass the Senate with a vote of 92-8. So the legislation, as I know you're aware, would empower USDA to give farmers or to help farmers navigate voluntary private carbon markets with confidence. With USDA's help, farmers who choose to participate would be able to collect a new stream of revenue for their work. They'd be sequestering carbon and reducing emissions. And the bill is almost universally endorsed by national farm groups while gaining support from prominent environmental groups and private sector companies as well. So I was curious, Secretary Vilsack, from your view of this legislation, do you believe that this legislation would be helpful to growers and producers as you, in your role as Secretary, are working on the climate crisis? And would you care to comment on it?
Well, I think it would be incredibly helpful because it's clear that we need to provide more information and more technical assistance in terms of what climate smart practices consist of and how to measure and quantify and verify those results. So the act that you are encouraging your members and your colleagues to vote on, and the one that passed the Senate overwhelmingly, would provide that kind of help and assistance. And I think it would complement nicely the Climate Smart Partnership Initiative we announced last week in Colorado, where we're essentially looking at large-scale demonstration and pilot projects to be able to aggregate information about what works and what doesn't, so that we can, over time, create the standard for climate smart commodities. As was the case with your act, significant support from the agricultural community, a lot of farm groups supporting the Climate Solutions Act. Likewise, both the food and ag and environmental industries very supportive of our efforts to try to focus on these pilots and demonstration projects. So I think it's a nice combination of providing the technical assistance and the resources to minimize risk to farmers and to empower them with information and knowledge about how best to incorporate climate smart practices in their farming operations.
And certainly the trusted voice that is USDA is a valuable resource there. Well, thank you for those comments, music to my ears, and certainly we do hope to be able to move forward and ensure that our farmers and producers can sequester carbon while also ensuring an additional revenue stream, particularly during, particularly given the challenges that so many producers are facing across the country.